Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us today. What do you think the vote for Speaker Johnson today showed us about this Congress?
You know, I think that everyone's ready to get back to work. As you saw, President Trump was able to really bring home those final votes for Johnson. And frankly, I think the people want to deliver on what we promised the American people we would be delivering on, right? We want lower taxes, secure the border, build the wall, but also people are tired of the foreign policy debacle that the Biden-Harris administration caused. So President Trump being back in office and certified this Monday is a pretty big deal.
So one of the holdouts, let's say, in the beginning was Congressman Chip Roy when this vote first started. And I think I saw on camera you in the chamber speaking to him. Can you give us a sense of what you said to him and what the messaging was to try to get some of those who were perhaps skeptical about a speakership again for Mike Johnson, what you said to him to convince him?
Look, I've known Chip Roy for a couple of years now, and so his entire thing is that he wants to ensure that if we are going to raise the debt ceiling, that there are certain savings for the American people, and that we're not just voting ourselves into more deficit. And I think that that's something that, especially as a new mom, if you have children, grandchildren, obviously that's something that's at the front of your mind, especially making these decisions. And so, look, he is anticipating that he will be instrumental in those reconciliation negotiations, but also to Chip at the end of the day also wants to show that he's a team player and that he's supportive of President Trump's agenda. And so I was asking him about kind of where he was standing, what his thoughts were, and then as you saw, he ended up voting for Speaker Johnson. So
the debt did rise during the first Trump administration. Are you confident that cutting spending and that deficit as well is something that can be done now in the second Trump term?
Oh, most certainly. And I say that because of internal discussions with the White House. And that's, in fact, what they want to do. That's why President Trump appointed Elon Musk and Vivek as a head of DOJ. But also, to look, Congress for the first time is also being held accountable by an administration that now has the juggernaut, which is the House, the Senate, and the White House. And remember, back in January of last cycle, I was actually one of the 20 that helped to renegotiate the House rules that would actually allow for President Trump's agenda to come forward through Congress in the Rules Committee. As you saw last time, there was a lot of obstructionists within the Republican Party that were blocking President Trump's agenda. So now that that's been flushed out, we'll see what happens with this reconciliation. But I have faith that President Trump will deliver on everything that he's promised on the campaign trail.
Do you have that confidence in Speaker Johnson as well? You know, one of the demands from the more skeptical members who were holdouts today, they had released a letter saying they want to make sure that members can offer amendments, for example, stop putting bills on the floor that violate the rule where they have time to read and debate, and that they don't want Speaker Johnson to rely on Democrats to pass bills. Do you think he'll be able to do that?
Well, yeah, I think so. In fact, I've talked to Speaker Johnson a lot, and I said, you know, are we going to have MAGA Mike back? And he said, yeah, I'll prove it to you. So it looks like MAGA Mike's been activated.
Did you have the chance to speak to President-elect Trump today? And if so, what did he share with you?
I haven't talked to President Trump today, but I will tell you last time I saw him, he was more than happy to have a unified Republican Congress. And I can also tell you that from the get-go, I'd say after I helped to host the presidential town hall in North Carolina, he knew that he was going to win. So I think he's counting down the days, just like we all are, for his swearing in a couple of days.
Still, I just have to come back to that question about those who are a bit more skeptical today and were originally holdouts in voting for Speaker Johnson. Do you think that tells us anything possibly about how it might be difficult to get some of that agenda that President Trump has set out passed through Congress?
No, because a lot of these people actually campaigned on the same stuff in the election cycle. And so, again, there are people that were concerned about the deficit, which everyone should be concerned about the deficit. It's pretty crazy. You can't just go to the bank and say, oh, I'm out of cash, raise my limit. That doesn't work with normal people. Why should it work for the federal government like that? But obviously, these people want to secure the border. They want to save on money for the American people. They want to prevent basically an economic collapse. And so I think that all of these people will play ball. For me personally, I can tell you that I'm one of the younger members of Congress, and I always think about, the future generations being really the ones that are going to be footing the bill. And so I think that lens and perspective, especially with President Trump having such young appointees to his administration, understands that as well. And so I'm very excited for an aggressive President Trump, not just on foreign policy, but savings, American energy independence, and really bringing down some of this crazy inflation.